Good afternoon, everyone. I am super excited that you're joining us today. This is Jennifer Tersini, Raise the Bar Consulting. I was just waiting a few moments to see that everybody's audio was connected. We do have a small but mighty team here to to listen to Jeffrey Lynn Campbell with Blaze Experts. I just love this group. They do a fabulous job with branding and and promotion, and I wanted to give you the opportunity firsthand to be able to meet them and hear inspiring words and great tidbits of information from Jeffrey Lynn. And you'll have to excuse me today. I am a little under the weather, so thank you for being kind and patient. Without further ado, I'm going to pass the baton here to Jeffrey Lynn to get today's presentation started. Hi, Jeffrey. Thanks for being with us today.
Well, I guess I should thank you. You're the one who's not feeling really well, so thanks for being here to introduce me. I appreciate it. I am going to go ahead and share my screen and get started so that we can jump right in, and you should be seeing it. Are we good? And then I lost you guys. I can't see you now.
We see you. You're
okay.
Good.
Good. All right. Well, that's all we need to know, right?
That's right.
So welcome, Frugal Innovation in Brand and Marketing for Nonprofits. Why am I here talking with you today? Well, first of all, I work with Jennifer and it's a blast. But secondly, because I have a branding agency that works with nonprofits and entrepreneurial spirits, because we have a passion for the independents who are out there, doing good really well, like you guys do. So without further ado, let's get started, because you don't want to hear all about me. You want to know all about this. So what is frugal innovation anyway? And why do we apply it to branding? Well, limitations tend to foster greater creativity. Without limited resources, we use best practices we have heard of, experienced, read about, and we throw them at the problem or the challenge before us. But when we have limits, we're forced to think differently. We have to approach it another way. We have to collaborate and find better, faster, cheaper, and oftentimes more valuable solutions. I'm not just talking about more time to shop around and find, the best price. I'm talking about looking for that side door. I'm talking about looking for the new perspective, another way in. And this is something that I experience over and over again in my work in branding and marketing for both small businesses and nonprofit organizations, is that the idea often blooms more beautifully in the mind where it is planted than in the one where it's seeded and took root. I find nonprofits to be very collaborative and think about things differently. And when you're looking at that and you're collaborating together, more minds, better solutions. And it fosters competition. When you have competition, people tend to think harder, do more, go farther to get more creative and come up with better solutions. It fosters ideation, and it's a better way to solve problems. Now, two books that spurred my interest in pursuit of these ideas obviously were Big Magic by Elizabeth Gilbert, but also Frugal Innovation, How to Do More with Less by Navi Raju. And that started actually, and I think he also did a book called Do Better with Less. But it started, the first time I saw it was 2012. The original book was called Jugaad Innovation. And it was all from a Hindi word, meaning finding an improvised solution born from ingenuity and cleverness. A flexible approach to solve a problem, right? Well, who doesn't want to be described that way? And when you think about it, that's what nonprofits have been doing all along. The 6 principles that came to place from this book are really how we approach solutions in the nonprofit sector anyway. 1, we seek opportunity in adversity. 2, we do more with less. We think and act flexibly because we have to think on our feet. We have to improvise. We have to keep it simple. We also always have to include the margin so that we know that we can keep growing our programs, keep our programs, and maybe even develop new ones, and following your heart, which is really kind of the basis for most of the founders of nonprofits in the first place. So how do you get there? Like, how do you get from here to there? Well, you start where you are. Obviously, up here in the right-hand quadrant, Disney, Apple, Nike, they're up there. You get the drift. But the rest of us are somewhere else in the 4 quadrants. We're striving for strong brand and consistent messaging. Sometimes we have really strong messaging, but our brand is a little weak. Maybe it's not consistent across our visuals and our verbal and everything else. But wherever you are, you can expand your reach and strengthen your brand to attract more. So let's talk about how to do it. Well, first of all, you have to worry about your brand. What does your brand even do for you? Well, it helps create awareness. Awareness is how you put yourself out there. You differentiate yourself, you present a cohesive, consistent brand style that you're building. That look and feel, that personality, that feeling that you put out there infused in your unique brand is what attracts your rock stars to you. And by your rock stars, I mean your donors, all stakeholders, your volunteers, your team, even the people that you are serving with your services. So what you do with that brand at that point, supporting your style, sharing your expertise, communicating your value, that awakens their desire to know you better. They become curious about what they can gain from working with you and want to find more about supporting your mission. That's what we all want, because then you can offer. You can present an offer under your style umbrella. It spurs action. It grows your outreach. It generates support, which allows you to do the good work you do. Your brand style affects all of these parts to some degree, and it helps establish that image, that overall image. It clarifies your vibe, it piques curiosity, and it attracts exactly the attention you want. So in addition to the A's of styling your brand, we all know a brand is no good if we're not going to leverage it and put it out there to market it. Because no one supports you because you have a cool logo. They support you because of how you're communicating your message in all the different ways. So of course, we establish your image first. Then we cast a net, increasing your area of influence among your potential audience. Your referral network, your clients, your competition, it will attract or repel your audience and establish your reputation. That is also where we start looking at your channels. Where is the best place for us to be to attract the people that are most likely to engage with you and support your cause? From greeting to goodbye, your brand has impact. It affects the growing and ongoing opinions of you and your organization. It happens through their experience, whether positive or negative, whether there's somebody who is supporting your services or is supported by them. That's both parts of it. But that customer journey enables you to increase your impact on the slice of the world affected by your mission. We call that, whoops, I went backwards. We call that your 360-degree brand engagement. It's just as important for your style to be evident during all that interactivity as it is with your outward promotion. We don't want an outward-facing style that is Louis Vuitton with an internal style of Jake from State Farm and his khakis. It just wouldn't be congruent, and it would disrupt the way you do business. So we want to blend what we do with who we are and who we help, and make that clear, because that impacts your income. Positive perception, interaction, opinion, feedback, reviews, all of that builds new and repeat support for recipients of your support, which is what we are after. because that's the ultimate win for the work we're doing. I want to go back to that impact piece for a second. When you think about brand overall, frugal innovation and branding, the easiest way to ensure that it's the same, greeting to goodbye, is to also make sure that you're applying it on the inside of your organization, because culture is the heart and soul of the organization. It brings your mission, your vision, your values, your unique brand promise, your very essence to life through a choreographed service experience. It's operational integration. It's the infusion of your brand into every interaction that makes it all happen. And you want to make sure your messages are landing. We have an Infusion checklist if you'd like it. I'm sure you can reach out to Jennifer or put your email in the chat. If you would like to ensure your messages are landing, you can use that to see all the different places that you can see where to put your brand so that you can get help and prioritize where you'd like to put it next. When you have all of that and you put it all together and you prioritize and you're onboarding your staff and people how to infuse the brand into everything because everyone understands it and knows how to apply it for themselves, then we have more impact, we attract more income, and our image and influence grows. We only have to do 3 things in our marketing to make that happen. The first is educate. The second, inspire. And the third, relate. If you know exactly who you're talking to and who you're talking about, you can ensure your message resonates by doing those 3 things: education, inspiration, and relatability. Only 3 things you need to do in your marketing. And if your brand is solid, that's pretty easy to do because you have consistent messaging and verbal, visual look, as well as your verbal communication to make that happen. So when you think about doing that and you're educating, inspiring, relating, don't just tell me, show me. Present the story, help me understand why I should care. How do we do that? The messages, language, voice, tone. They differ for each group of stakeholders you have, and most often you would be crafting different messages for your different markets, even when they're on the same topic, program, or information. Just like a good author, you want to view the benefit, not the feature, through the eyes of the audience you're speaking with. When we approach a brand with a 360-degree view, we ensure a consistency that builds and strengthens brand reputation. First, look around from the perspective of your own volunteers and staff. Second, view it through the eyes of whom you help. For if your staff is trained well, those who benefit will be treated well. And thirdly, look through the eyes of those who support your efforts. For even as they fund everything, they are more likely to open their wallets and other resources if they align with the values evident in how your services are perceived. It sometimes seems counterproductive, but if your internal culture is solid, it is the most consistent takeaway of anyone who comes in contact with your brand. It creates ambassadors. Brand experience needs to be consistent from greeting to goodbye, and beginning internally ensures the synergy that people will see on the outside. So if you start and you begin and you look through those lenses, it's easy to start crafting a message that is consistent or strengthen a brand that maybe needs it. First, ask yourself, what do you want to be known for? And do this exercise for each stakeholder group, team, those who benefit from your services, your donors, sponsors, partners, allies. Your differentiation, your emotional hooks, they might be different in each case, or they may be insanely similar. It depends. But if you do this exercise and you say, hey, what do we want to be known for? Usually based upon your mission. And you say, what are the words that will help that come to life for team, for clients, for supporters? They may be different words. They may be all the same, but it should make it easier for you to get on to the next piece. This is our SMILES formula. So when you think about as an organization and you think back to the 4 A's, awareness, attraction, awakening, and action, to communicate those well, it's important that first contact is consistent with who you are as a brand. So ask yourself, who are you as an organization? You may not be the same as you were when you were founded 25 years ago. You may need to adjust a little, change up your mission so that it is more accurate of the programs that you do now, or even the services you offer. But first ask, who are you as an organization today? When you are crystal clear, your stakeholders are too. Remember, we're blending who you are as an organization with what you do to help your community. You've probably already done some of this work, albeit for different outcome or context or board alignment, but you can reflect on that to use it as you go through the SMILE formula. The first question you want to ask, what makes you different and better than others doing something similar? Maybe in your market, perhaps not in your community. Maybe you're the fastest or the most thorough. Maybe it's efficiency or logistics or engagement. Maybe you do more than anyone else in your area. Whatever that short phrase is that makes you stand head and shoulders above anyone else, break that down to one word or a short phrase and build clarity around your brand style. Next, what makes you memorable? How do people feel when they interact with your organization? How do they feel when they've moved on or even been turned away? This is what leaves the lasting impression. It's what makes you memorable and referable. Write down what people say they remember about you. Individual, what makes you you? Is it your history, where you came from, where you're going? What do you do that is different from everyone else? What quality is the longest lasting? What's that one thing the organization was built upon from the very, very beginning? It doesn't have to be unique to you. For everything, when we put it all together, creates your individual brand style. It's not one piece all by itself. And then what is the experience or expertise you bring to the table? What have you learned over the years? What is your superpower or your view of the world at large? What do people exposed to your brand take away most, and how do they benefit? Here's another exercise you can conduct with your team if you need a little more help working through your language, voice, tone, personality, style. List all 5 senses. What do you want people to see when they work with you? And this may not be literal. It may be conceptual or figurative. What do you want them to hear, smell? If it's difficult or it doesn't apply, you can skip it. But I mean, even taste. Are you salty? Are you sweet? What kind of sweet? And for touch, always think in terms of feel, because people make decisions or for support or to ask for help based on emotion, not just logic. Remember, people may not remember exactly what you did or what you said, but they will always remember how you made them feel. This is no different for nonprofits. Isn't it often what you say and do that makes people feel a certain way? Yes. And the things you say and do represent your brand on the inside as much as they attract your audience in the first place. Those you do your best work with, around, and for will be attracted to that. So what is your brand's mood? You know, a lot of people say, oh, Jeffrey, my brand's mood is happy. I want more than that. I want to know what kind of happy. How often do we hear somebody say, oh, that's just semantics? But this is the time to worry about semantics. Do we want people to feel relieved, safe, content, joyful, peaceful, ecstatic, euphoric, giddy? If you can make a list of 3 to 5 adjectives that describe the mood of your brand best, then when you put it together with the SMILE formula, you can really start to pull out that message that you want to get out in the world, on social media, on the front end, when they see it first, and also be able to pull that through all the way, the experience of all your stakeholders till they move on, or change from client to volunteer to supporter, which isn't that the ultimate reward? So how can you do this? Well, there's a few different ways to look at it, but we break it down into 7 signature touch points. Simple is usually better. So in order to make a lasting impression and elevate and create that how you made them feel memory in each area, first we look at brands, social media, signage, menus, facility and event decor, collateral materials, your fundraising mailers, email signatures, business cards, pitch decks, your fleet or delivery vehicles, your uniforms, your dress code. That all is a reflection of a unified brand. Next, what about your greeting? Large organizations often push standards that require consistency, whereas smaller organizations allow more freedom and include their team in deciding what to say and how to say it. We have found that that is much more effective because even as you have to coach it along, you can't just let everybody go rogue, but voice and tone need to be consistent, inviting. Think of variations on the theme. Involve your people with a personalized way to achieve your objectives by encouraging buy-in and empowering them to do their best work with and for the organization. If you look at, hey, this is our mission, or this is our personality, or this is our style, or this is how we want people to feel. You are our greeter, or you are our intake person, or you are on the front lines delivering services every week. How can you make people feel X in the work you do? Get the input, boil it all down, and then make some decisions. Here are 3 ways each of us can do this. Well, they've come up with the ideas and you've signed off on the stamp of approval. So you're ensured that it's easy for them to do. They came up with it, and that is in approval with and in alignment with your brand. Arrival, meetings, go beyond being on time. What can you do that makes you stand apart? Some places meet or greet you at the door. Some offer a comfortable, safe waiting area with someone to wait with you. Some present you with something you need as a potential client immediately. Think about what your warm fuzzy could be, because those things make it memorable. Brand pillars. This is a tough one. I often get asked the question when I say, hey, we need brand pillars, the foundation of your brand. They're not your values, but they're aligned with them to bring your brand to life. And even explaining that the pillars are your litmus test that allow team members to individually express your brand without having to have a checklist, because they have enough of those to do their job well and even offer the services. So ideally, you would have 3 or 4 of these pillars that are not only evident out in your promotion, but that you can bring to life inside. What if you have a value of warmth, but your pillar is thoughtful. If you take warmth, how can you bring warmth to life in a thoughtful way when you're interacting with people within your organization? That's what you want to think about with your pillars. How can I bring the brand to life? Because it's the look, the feel, the language, the level of service that you expect to be delivered, that you want to be consistent no matter who they're dealing with within your organization. If you think about your brand pillars, you put them together and you say, look, this is how we want everyone to be treated so that it's in line with how we want them to feel, then that really helps you drill that down to be exactly the things you can lean on whenever you're kind of in a bind and don't know how you should handle a situation. Not like any of us come in contact with unreasonable situations in this line of work. And what about your interaction or delivery? Let's look at service standards. For a restaurant, you'll go to some restaurants and the server will come up and explain the experience or the menu, ask you if you've been there before, suggest a signature cocktail, that kind of thing. For a personal trainer, though, maybe it's a brisk walk warm-up they do with every client every time to connect and talk about what's going on in their life before, they make their client not like them so much by working them too hard. For a life coach, maybe it's a sharing moment about what transpired since the last time you talked, like a high-low recap or something. Or maybe there's a case study or story that conveys expectation. If you can put together a bullet list of things to ask or talk about as you guide someone through your process, it puts them at ease, it encourages them, and it helps you help them. Closing the sale or payment. And I don't just mean with your donors. I mean, when somebody's come to you for help and then they get overwhelmed and I made a mistake, I want to leave. That can get awkward, especially because there isn't a tangible product changing hands right then for those receiving our help or supporting us. So having a standard around the transactions for your 3 different audiences can make it experiential instead of transactional. And then it doesn't feel like such a big decision because it seems natural to go through it. So there are different ways to help people feel more comfortable with these types of transactions. For a donor, it might be a happy dance email you send right after that you receive the check. For a new client, it might be a handwritten note that you put in whatever services that they are receiving from you. Something that puts them at ease and encourages them so that they feel good about the decision they've made and they move forward. And after it's all done, what then? Well, it's that departure. Information is key here. Let them know the expectations and next steps. Welcome them back. How will you continue the relationship? Are you going to put them on your email list? Are you going to put them on a call list to check in, send birthday cards or a postcard? Do you have a program for personal visits? What makes sense for your organization? And find out how you can follow up to keep the relationship going, even if it's not the level of when you're interacting together all the time. So then what's next? We all know we go to conferences. We come back with all these amazing ideas we want to implement. We're inspired, we're hopeful, we're excited to put it to good use. And then we return to work. And much of it falls by the wayside because we have urgent operational issues that demand our attention. I'm sure we all agree. That's why we do the work here, so you can begin anew without having to spend more time, attention, energy to make it happen. So right now, I want you to think, who are you? Your name and your organization. What do you do? your mission in your words, derived from the smile section, is how you want people to feel when working with organization. And then what signature touch point can you infuse the second you return from conference? You already know what, or from this conversation, you already know where your gaps are. But just from listening to this and thinking about your own organization, we all do it. You're thinking, you know what? We don't do that very well, or we could do better at that. If you think about that and say, I know what signature touch point I'm going to focus on first, then that one small, little, teeny tiny change can make a huge difference in your organization. And then if you think about, you layer on the frugal innovation, pull together a committee, a task force, a few people that you trust, and say, okay, this is the signature touch point where we lack the most. So how are we going to use frugal innovation to tackle it? We can't just throw money at the problem. We can't just throw time. We don't have the bandwidth. So how think creatively, work together, collaborate, and make this happen? Think about one that doesn't take a lot of effort, but can make a huge difference, even in only one of your targets. Team, client, donors. Commit to making that one change, give it a date or deadline, or as my team is used to knowing, we're not leaving this room until we have figured out. So clear your schedule. But you get it done because you get creative, you get competitive, and you make it happen. So think of that problem or challenge you've been wanting to do, but it requires more resources than you currently have. Even if you've been awaiting or hoping for grant funding for it, how could you employ frugal innovation to find that way around, under, over, or through the issue before you have additional resources? Because think, if you found a frugally innovative way to do something, when you do get those resources, what more impact you could have. I mean, you don't have to figure out the answer right now. Just consider the issue or problem you want to tackle by employing frugal innovation with your team. And I would love to know how that goes. If you would like to tune in, we have a podcast, Brand Badasses, that helps you amplify your impressions and your impact by employing frugal innovation. We're on Apple and on our website at blazeexperts.com, and we would love for you to tune in. I can also tell you that because I'm a friend of Jennifer's and I work with her, I am happy to have a 30-minute call with you to kind of talk through your own challenges with your brand or how to frugally innovate or any of those things. And I'm even happy to take some of your questions, concerns, snide remarks right now, if that is something that you would like to explore. I'm sure, Jennifer, even though you don't feel that well, I'm sure you have a couple of questions or something for me. Try to stump me, baby. I think you're muted, sweetheart.
Oh yeah, that would be great if I turn my mute.
I thought you were just typing me in the chat or something.
No, I was talking because I'm, under the weather and didn't realize it. But what I said was that let's make sure that we give folks the opportunity to chime in. A number of people did join the call while you were presenting. Does anyone have any specific questions for Jeffrey Lynn? You're welcome, Sabir.
Thanks for coming. I'm happy you could get here.
And we will go ahead and put this entire presentation on our YouTube channel in the next day or so.
Great. Good.
Questions, anyone?
Sure.
Yes.
Blaze, was that a worksheet that I mean, I just quickly kind of responded to it because I didn't know if we were doing a kind of a working meeting as well.
I would love for you to, yes, I love it when you work through it now because you might not do it later, right? But the other thing is I do have some other tools and things that could be of use to you. If you want to, and I'm sure Jennifer has your email and I can just send it to her and send it out. But if you want to put it in the chat, I will definitely send you some information. And I'm even happy to jump on a call with you and work through some of it with you.
Oh, Blaze, thank you so much.
Absolutely.
Yes, I will put my email and my phone number in the chat.
Good. Would love that.
Jeffrey Lynn.
Yes.
Maybe what my thought is, maybe walk people through what your discovery process is if they don't even know how to answer some of these questions, like if they get stumped.
Yeah.
What is it that your team does to help them through that?
Well, this is really the really streamlined version to be able to help you get to the most important pieces the quickest, so that you can drill down and know exactly what you need to be saying to your target market, how to say it. When we work through it, we go through much more than just the SMILE formula and all of that. We go through a very detailed, what do I want to say? A really detailed build out of your 3 tiers. So the people who benefit from you, the people who support you, and the people that are in your circle and working with you. And we figure out exactly who they are, what they do, what they're into, why they're doing what the work they're doing with you. And if you can identify that first, it makes it a whole lot easier to talk to each one of them. Because if you go through each of those exercises, and here's probably the easiest way to do it. Walk into your organization, tell everybody, I'm not here. I am coming in on Tuesday morning or Thursday afternoon or whatever it is. I am coming in and I am not here. And take your 5 senses and write down what you see, what you smell, what you hear, what you taste, what you feel, and then do it on a completely different day with what you want to see, hear, feel, taste. And when you see the difference between those 2 things, that gives you a gap to work and close. That's often the first place to start, to say, you know what, I'm sitting here, I'm observing this, I'm looking at intake, or I'm looking how we are putting our services out there. I'm looking at my own team, working through things, working on things. Here are the gaps I see. Now, what do we need to do to get through each of these? And then that identifies those gaps for you first, so that then you know which area to work on. Because then you'll know, is this an internal thing, or are we doing everything great in here, which isn't usually the case. It usually needs a little bit of work, but are we not communicating that out there? And if that's the disconnect, that's easy to identify and get help with. A lot of times, a nonprofit, your brand is so established that you really don't want to mess with it that much. You just want to make sure that you're solidifying how you're putting all of that communication out there versus wanting to change the communication itself. And that's where it gets really, really a little bit harder, is that you're in the middle of it and you can't see the forest for the trees. So having somebody else from, like us or Jennifer or somebody from the outside, give you that view through that target market is a really solid first step, because then you can, there's all those aha moments. Oh my gosh, I've been in here doing this, digging this ditch, doing my thing all this time. I had no idea that I was digging the wrong ditch. And it's often very helpful. Did that answer your question at all, Jennifer?
Yes, it did. I thought it might be helpful to those on the call to know sort of what you do from there, you know, what you do from the initial conversation or worksheet.
Yeah. And of course, when you're working with us, it's a little bit more involved in that we start with that 3 tier. We help you figure out where your gaps are. We work with your board, your leadership to go through all of that. And then even sometimes suggest renaming because your mission isn't the same as it was 25 years ago. But often it is, if you are adamant about the things that are working well, we just help come in and plug the gaps so that people understand what you're working for, who you're working with, and how you work, so they can select in to support your effort.
Does anyone have any other questions for Jeffrey Lynn?
Yes, I wanted to just check in with you as someone who's been directing a nonprofit that has been around for a long time. But we are creating a concept for which at least we have not seen competition. And I'm wondering whether you have some suggestions on crafting that initial branding, or a process that we should be going through in order to get to the branding.
Oh, well, Mike, thank you very much for your question. Thank you for being here. My first answer would be hire Blaze and we'll help you do it. but the second answer for that would be, if you start with those pieces that we talked about, your influence, your impact, and how you want to generate income, figure those things out first. And then developing your communication around those 5 senses, how you want people to feel, then you can work through that. I have an interesting concept, and I think you'll like this, Mike. This is how I always think about brand, okay? Think of your brand like a mall, right? Your mission, your vision, your values are your anchor stores. A mall without anchor stores closes. It doesn't stay open. But a mall that only has anchor stores becomes the whole, I walked into JCPenney, Sephora, I got my lipstick and I left. They don't hang out in your mall. But if you have gone to the trouble of creating a personality, a brand style, a voice, a tone, the language you want people to use because it appeals to your target market, voice, tone, language, personality, style, yes words and no words even. Like, these are words we will never say. Might be offensive, maybe they're against our grain, whatever that looks like. Sometimes starting with no helps you get to the yes. And most importantly, what do we stand for and what do we stand against? Because that's how people align with you and want to be drawn in. And when you can put that out there without having to say it, that's the big part. Now, you always think, or most people think, my brand is a logo. Well, people are not going to support you because you have a cool logo. They're just not. Your logo, your colors, your type style, all of those things that you think about visually that you tend to see up front with a brand. In the mall, that's our food court. Go to any party, any of the fundraising events you guys have had, you put the bar or the food at the back, people will find it. They will always find it. So the food court tends to be that hangout place where your visual identification lives. But people don't stay there. They hang out in your mall for all of those pieces put together. So that's where you want to make sure that all of your stores along the way are consistent with that mission, vision, and values in the anchor so that people hang out. Start with the anchor stores, then fill out the other pieces based on the 5 senses, based on the SMILE formula, and then create your logo, your colors, and your type style last. Then you will be on target. Is that helpful?
That's helpful. Will you raise the funds for your fees with us?
You know, I've been asked that a lot. And I will tell you, I'm much more affordable than you think because I frugally innovate.
It's the mall is an interesting one. I guess the challenge for us is to find the shopping center, okay? Because we're doing something that hasn't been done. We're doing it as an interaction between youth and adults.
Okay.
And we have all kinds of things standing in our way in terms of that interaction. And then we're doing something in which the youth are actually the instructors. So we're doing inverse mentoring. So I think we've figured out the catchphrases. I'm not sure that we know at this point how to break through but we don't do it that way. Or can you show us the research, since you're talking about an educational activity? And it really isn't an education activity. It's an instructional and capacity building activity. So certainly to find a good wordsmith, to spend maybe 15 of the 30 minutes that you are offering.
I think that would be actually, Mike, that would be pretty easy because words are awesome and they're my jam. And even already what you're talking about with instruction and the youth or the inverse mentoring thing, I love that. I think it is all about learning, right? We're never too old to learn, and we're never too old to learn from anyone ever. So I think there's a real easy way probably to put that together and say, you know, sure, you know, you're not afraid to learn. Let's figure out how to do this together. You know, you're outable, right? And really just a little collaboration. You'd probably get a few catchphrases that you could work from.
Okay, so you're not threatened by working with an older person?
No, not at all.
Thank you.
But there's no senior discounts, Mike. No, I'm just kidding.
You know, it is an interesting challenge to work with, well, it depends what you mean by youth, but we work with high school students often. And they have so much they have to do that it is always a challenge to recruit them. And they're continually growing up and graduating. That's an ongoing process, thankfully.
Isn't that's the worst? Yeah.
You're always having to renew your pool of teenagers.
Uh-huh.
You know?
Uh-huh. Except, unfortunately, as a society, we also let them graduate. We have no data that we've collected about them. We don't share that data about them either. So we lose sight of the energy that we have built in that youth and let them just go on. I think our purpose is to get them to be lifetime mentors for the adult and senior with whom they connect.
Well, I hear you, but I'm just acknowledging that there is a challenge there.
Oh yeah.
You know, to gather them, you know, and because there's a lot of very, very dedicated. I must say, going virtual has really helped.
Oh yes.
They don't have to rely on their parents to transport them. You know, it's also less expensive because you don't have to feed them. If you bring kids together, you have to feed them. You cannot, you must, they get hungry.
I think that's pretty much true with anyone.
Well, that's true, but it's even more, it seems to be even more poignant, shall we say, with teenagers.
Well,
What I would suggest for you, and this is This is more about the internal side of the 360-degree brand. But
Yeah.
what I would say is align your mission with another like-minded organization that is actually helping youth who are even younger, and start going in and telling them as they get help, as they graduate out of the programs they have, that they can turn around and help others by moving into this one, and keep your pipeline full. Because if your brand is aligned, your missions, the mall anchor stores are aligned, that could be a constant feeder for you. And then if you grow on to and give forward, then you can align with another organization that just builds the community of nonprofits better and better and bigger and more and faster, that as they graduate, they can move into another aligned organization so that they become lifetime mentors, lifetime supporters of the nonprofit sector. Plus, that gives us the feeder for more incredibly passionate people to be working in the sector.
You picked up on the way we are organized. In fact, don't run the program. We look for community partners to run the program. So I invite Satbir to provide us any leftover young people she has.
That's the problem. We don't have any leftovers. I'm sorry, there are no leftovers. But I like that idea, Blaze. So I know that we have successfully worked at times with the Boys and Girls Clubs.
Good.
It's not sustaining right now, but we have worked with them. Yeah.
Well, and often, it is always super smart to align yourself with a like-minded organization of that size, because they have so many resources. And if you're looking at the frugal innovation approach, often you get stronger support and a more passionate, involved support from other smaller organizations that are bootstrapping it like the rest of us are. Yeah.
Mhm. Well, thank you. Very good.
Absolutely. It was a pleasure to be here. Thanks, Jennifer, for inviting me.
It's a pleasure to have you. Thank you so much for joining us, Jeffrey Lynn, and for being here today. Do I see one more question?
I was just signing wait to my daughter. That's all.
Oh, okay.
I have a visitor coming.
Oh, yes. We love cameo appearances. of
He
course.
always shows up.
That's
He just
great.
does.
That's great. Right at the end.
Always right at the end. He's like,
Uh-huh.
okay, I haven't had any attention yet.
Uh-huh. This is a marketing strategy. Oh, and by the way, here's my cat. No, I'm just kidding.
So if you're not a cat person, I will make sure that Cynthia has the handouts that I talked about, Jennifer, to send out to everybody. And I absolutely, I'll spend 20 or 30 minutes on the phone with you talking through your own brands if you would like some help. I'd be happy to.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Jeffrey Lynn. And thank you all of you for being here today and joining us for her presentation. It's always a good one. I see that a few of you have placed your email addresses in the chat. So we'll make sure to keep it up long enough so Jeffrey Lynn can pull all of those and reach you directly. We're Raise the Bar Consulting, offer fundraising, interim leadership, executive leadership, and organizational development services. So if I can be of help to you, or if you just lose Jeffrey's email and want to reach out to me at some point in time, please feel free. Thanks so much for being here. Our last session is in 2 weeks.
I think she went muting.
No, I'm trying not to sneeze, honestly. I'm having a hard time here.
Like, don't close it yet. I'm typing email addresses.
Yeah. So the final, and it's been a long series, so thanks for sticking with us. But our final webinar in the series will be Jennifer Phelps talking about dressing up your virtual space. So as much as your office space, your home space says something and is important in this new era. She's going to give us some tips for aligning our virtual space as well. So I hope you'll be able to join us for that. And that's in 2 weeks. All right. Thanks so much, everyone, for being here, and have a great day.
Thank you.